Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. We are getting into that portion of the offseason where you're starting to see people release their top 25s. You're starting to see people release their conference power rankings heading into the 2025 year. As spring practice wraps up, as the spring portal wraps up, you kind of get a feel for what these teams are going to be in 2025. I want to take a look at three teams in the Big Ten that I think will surprise a lot of people in a good way in the 2025 year. These are the teams that, and I'm sure many of y'all can relate to this, you're kind of looking through the odds markets heading into a college football season, trying to identify the teams that you are a little bit higher on than the market is. These are probably my three teams in the Big Ten. Fired up to get into this one. Before we do it, as always, y'all let it fly in the comment section. In my opinion, the beauty of doing this in May is y'all who are listening to this probably live and breathe these programs, and probably live and breathe the sport as a whole and kind of follow college football pretty damn closely. Would love to hear from you guys in the comment section. Appreciate y'all rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get into it. Now, the team that's getting everybody's attention is Illinois. And I think Illinois is going to be a damn good football team. The reason I'm not including Illinois in this list is because I think most of the college football landscape pretty damn high on what Illinois is going to be in the 2025 year. Here are the three teams that I think people are sleeping on a little bit. And I'm going to give my 5-minute elevator pitch on each of these football teams going into the 2025 year. I want to start with USC. Now, what I think many people are missing with USC is you're kind of just looking at the record of this football team in 2024 and kind of assuming they're going in the wrong direction. And look, they probably were going in the wrong direction in the 2024 year. They were not playing very good football. And I kind of understand why maybe some national media analysts on the surface are questioning this USC team in the 2025 season. They weren't as bad as many people probably like to perceive. Like, yes, they lost 6 football games. They were up 14 against Penn State. They were in it with Notre Dame, a team that played in the national championships. They lost the game to Michigan early in the season that they probably win 9 times out of 10, kind of dominated the second half of that football game. Yes, they had some ugly losses to a team like Maryland. You look at the 6 losses, 5 out of 6 of them were one-score losses. Now, the question is, all right, how do we fix those one-score losses going into the 2025 year? To me, I think it starts with this defensive line that they've put together. Now, the USC fans know this. I'm not sure many other college football fans do. This defensive line was a problem last year. They weren't deep enough. They weren't big enough. They did not have an adequate defensive line to hold up in the Big Ten. And I think every single USC fan understands that. Look what they did in the offseason. They pretty much return everybody coming back. Guys like Devin Tompkins. You have some young cats coming up through the pipeline. Carlin Jones, Gita Abasiri. You're bringing Josh Jarrett from Georgia. You're bringing Keyshawn Silver from North Carolina. You get Jakeem Stewart coming in as a true freshman. They look different. They are deeper. They are bigger. And then here's the other conversation you have with USC is you're going year 2 with Dan Lynn, which I think matters. Like there was a reason Penn State made a push for Coach Lynn during this offseason. He's one of the best defensive coordinators in the sport. So you're a deeper football team specifically on the defensive line, which is going to help you win those one-score games in the fourth quarter that USC couldn't win in the 2024 year. You go year 2 with Dan Lynn. This defense already took a step in the right direction from 2023 to 2024. They have better personnel. They are going into year 2 with Dan Lynn. This defense is going to be a much better defense than I think many perceive. Now, I think another reason that many people are maybe lower than me on this USC team is you probably have question marks not only about the quarterback play, but the wide receivers as well. The wide receiver room. I think a lot of people think the losses of Zachariah Branch and Deuce Robinson are a bigger deal than they actually are. Go back to that 2024 year. The 2 best wide receivers on this football team, they were Jacoby Land and Mekhi Lemon. Now, Zachariah Branch and Deuce Robinson got most of the national media attention because they had 5 stars next to their name coming out of high school. You still return your 2 best wide receivers which I think makes up one of the better wide receiver duos that you see in the country. And then the concerns about Jaden at quarterback. Look, I don't think it was perfect from Jaden. I've been very vocal that he needs to take a step in 2025 if USC wants to compete at the highest level. I'm right now ready to give Lincoln Riley the benefit of the doubt because I think he's earned it. Yes, Jaden was not perfect in 2024. Now he has a full offseason to be in the quarterback one in spring practice and in fall camp. I'm going to kind of blindly trust that Lincoln Riley gets the best out of Jaden. And if you get the best out of Jaden, you're looking at a very good quarterback, especially as you stack the quarterbacks in the Big Ten. Couple young cats on the offensive line that we expect to take a step. I think it comes down to the defense, which I think is the crazy part when you're talking about USC. We ain't used to talking about this team leaning on their defense. I think that's the unit that USC can lean on in 2025. Give me some stock in USC going into the 2025 year. Number 2 on the list, the Indiana Hoosiers. Now, I don't know if it's fair to say that Indiana's flying under the radar because of how successful they were in 2024. I get a lot of people that seem to be assuming that Indiana is going to revert back to what Indiana was before Coach Cignetti came in. Here's the biggest thing I'll say for Indiana. They return a lot more than people realize. And I think you potentially upgrade at the quarterback position. You only lose 2 NFL draft picks from this team last year. CJ West went in round 4, Curtis Rourke went in round 7. I think you could make the argument that Fernando Mendoza can be a better quarterback for Indiana in 2025. Now it's a lot to live up to because Curtis Rourke was pretty damn good for Indiana. I think Fernando Mendoza is a little bit more talented. And here's the other thing. You return a very good wide receiver duo in Elijah Surratt and Omar Cooper, who I think are some of the better wide receivers in the Big Ten. And then you return your offensive coordinator, which I think's a bit. I know Sinceri went to UCLA, but the one who's calling the shots is still at Indiana. Coach Cignetti has assembled one of the better coaching staffs, in my opinion, in the country. And he did a really good job retaining the coaches he wanted to retain. Not only as the offensive coordinator, not only the defensive coordinator, what about the strength staff? Like USC made a push for Indiana's head strength and conditioning coach. Kurt Cignetti matched USC's offer, kept him in Indiana. So you have a really good coaching staff with, I think, some really good personnel going into 2025, potentially an upgrade at the quarterback spot, 2 really talented pass catchers in Elijah Surratt and Omar Cooper. There's a lot to believe in for this Indiana offense. And then you go to the Indiana defense, and they got legitimate NFL dudes at all 3 levels of this defense. When you look at Mikel Kamara coming off the edge, he's one of the best pure pass rushers, not only in the Big Ten, but I would say really in all of college football going into 2025. Then you look at Aiden Fisher at off-ball linebacker, one of the better linebackers in the Big Ten going into 2025. Then you look at the secondary, D'Angelo Pons. I mean, he is one of the best cornerbacks in the country going into the 2025 year. It's a more complete team maybe than what we saw last year, and you have some legitimate NFL dudes. Look, is Indiana going to have the same record as they had in the 2025 or 2024 year, excuse me? I don't know, because the schedule gets a little bit more difficult. I think they will be still a very, very good football team. And although Indiana, when they went up against a team like Ohio State, although it went up against a team like Notre Dame on the road in the college football playoffs, I understand those games did not go the way Indiana wanted them to. This team is still very good going into 2025. And I think people are probably assuming they're going to kind of go back to what they were before Coach Cignetti went. I got a lot of confidence in this roster. I got a lot of confidence in this coaching staff. Year 2 with this coaching staff, potentially a better roster. Why are we selling stock on Indiana going into 2025? Last team, the Washington Huskies, another really fun team, and another coach that I got a ton of respect for. Again, like, there's probably a common theme here. Like, these are coaches that we've seen be really, really good. Jedd Fisch, one of them. Now, Jedd Fisch, I think, had on the surface, Washington went from playing for national championship in 2023 to not really contending or even coming close to contending for national championship in 2025. I don't think people realize how much Washington lost after that 2023 year and how much work Jed Fish had to do with this roster, especially taking over that roster last year a little bit late. Like he didn't have the time to go address this team in the portal as he probably wanted to. And I kind of had to rely on the spring transfer portal more than you want going into the 2024 year. Here's my take on Washington. It starts with the quarterback, Damon Williams, who, in terms of a ceiling, in terms of what this kid can be, especially with the tutelage of a guy like Jed Fish, that could be one of the best quarterbacks that we see in the conference and, quite frankly, the country in the 2025 year. I think he has a legitimate round one wide receiver in Denzel Boston, or potentially a round one wide receiver in Denzel Boston. I think he's got one of the best running backs in the country in Jonah Coleman. I think they've done a nice job trying to fill in the offensive line. Now, I don't think the line of scrimmage play is quite what Jed Fish wants it to be at Washington yet, but it's probably going to be better than what it was in the 2024 year. So you got a difference maker at quarterback with a really good coach in terms of developing quarterbacks. You got one of the better backs in the country. You got one of the better wide receivers in the country in Denzel Boston. Then you scroll down to the defense, and it starts with Ryan Walters. I left Ryan Walters off my top defensive coordinator list. That was probably a mistake. You know, Ryan Walters, say what you want about him as a head coach at Purdue, that got ugly. Him as a defensive coordinator in the Big Ten, we know what this kid can do, and he's going to have a second. Not kid, I shouldn't call Ryan Walters a kid. We know what that dude can do, coaching defense. Secondary is going to be awesome. I think you got maybe the best cornerback duo in the country with Prysock and Takario Davis, with Ryan Walters, who is exceptional at coaching up defensive backs. That secondary should be very good. It was very good last year. The front seven, I think the question is, do we have enough difference makers yet in the front seven to do what Washington wants to do? That's probably still the question. But this team, I think, is better than it was personnel-wise than they were in 2024. I think you have some high upside guys specifically at the quarterback position. I think Washington is on the right track, and I'm not sure if they're totally where Jed Fish wants them to be in 2025, but I think they're closer than they were in 2024. And that Washington team in 2024 probably didn't get enough credit for how good they were year one under Jed Fish in some less than ideal circumstances. USC, Indiana, Washington. Those are three teams that you look at top 25 rankings, and there are some top 25 rankings out there. You don't see a single one of these teams. I think all three of these teams have legitimate chances to be top 25 teams, and teams that look in the Big Ten. Everybody's talking about Oregon, Ohio State, and Penn State. Keep an eye on these three teams in the Big Ten as kind of making a little bit more noise than people expect from them going into the 2025 year. We'll close it out there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.